My father was dying. Stage 4 cancer. Hospice care. And I was 6 months pregnant with my first child. There were moments when the grief was so loud I couldn't hear my own breath. The baby kicked inside me like a quiet reminder that life goes on, even when your heart is breaking. I spent my days between the hospital and the house, washing bottles, prepping the nursery, holding Dad's hand as he slipped in and out of sleep. I barely slept, barely ate, but I was surviving, because I thought I had love, because I thought he was there for me. My husband, Daniel, had been distant, not cruel, just absent. He said work was picking up, said he was trying to give me space, said stress made him shut down sometimes. I believed him, because you want to believe your husband, especially when the world already feels like it's crumbling, especially when you're carrying his child. And then there was Rachel, my best friend since college, the kind of friend who knew my coffee order by heart, who stayed overnight at the hospital with me when the contractions scared me in the second trimester, who held my hair back when morning sickness became an all-day affair. She said, "You're not alone. I'll make sure of it." And I believed her too. I started to notice little things. Rachel texting more than usual. Daniel smiling at his phone when he thought I wasn't watching. Inside jokes I didn't understand being exchanged between them, but I told myself I was paranoid. Pregnancy hormones, sleep deprivation, grief. Surely it was just in my head. One night, while Dad was resting peacefully for once, I came home earlier than expected. Rachel was there. I hadn't asked her to come. Daniel said he thought I'd be staying the night at the hospital. They looked surprised when I walked in, but not guilty, not enough to raise alarm. They smiled, said they were just watching a movie, that they'd ordered dinner for all of us. Rachel kissed my cheek and said, "You look so tired, babe. Go rest. We'll handle everything." And I did. I laid down. I curled up in our bed. And I fell asleep. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It lived under my skin like an itch I couldn't scratch. So the next day, when Daniel left for work and Rachel went home, I checked the baby monitor camera app. We'd installed it in the nursery, but the camera had a wide-angle view that caught the hallway too. And I hadn't turned off the recording feature. I didn't expect to find anything. But I watched anyway. I watched Rachel linger after I fell asleep. Watched her open another bottle of wine. Watched her and Daniel sit closer than they should have. And then, I saw it. A kiss. Not shy. Not innocent. Not a drunken mistake. It was long. Familiar. Like they'd done it before. Like they weren't afraid of being caught. I stopped breathing. My hand flew to my stomach. Like I could shield the baby from the betrayal bleeding through my phone screen. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I sat there. Silent. Still. Watching the people I trusted most unravel everything behind my back. My heart didn't just break. It disappeared. And in its place was something cold, hard, unforgiving. I didn't confront them that night. I couldn't. My father was still alive. My baby was still growing inside me. And the truth? The truth would destroy too much too fast. So I smiled, pretended, waited, and I began to record everything. As I knew, the day was coming. The day I would stop being silent. The day I would burn everything down. The worst part wasn't the kiss. It was the ease of it. Like muscle memory. Like they'd done it 100 times before. Like my house, my home, had always belonged to them when I wasn't looking. I didn't cry that morning. I made Daniel breakfast. Smiled when Rachel texted to ask if I needed anything. I cleaned the baby bottles. Folded the tiny onesies I just washed. Placed my father's favorite blanket over his legs when I visited. On the outside, everything was normal. But inside, I was cataloging every moment, every whisper, every lie. I turned the nursery cam off. Too risky. I ordered 2 new hidden cameras that looked like air fresheners. One for the living room, one for the guest room, where Rachel sometimes stayed after late hospital nights. And then I started saving the footage to a locked drive, labeled with a name no one would suspect. Each day brought a new layer of disgust. Rachel's fingers brushing Daniel's arm. Daniel whispering something that made her laugh too hard. Shared glances when they thought I wasn't watching. It wasn't just betrayal. It was intimacy. That was what gutted me the most. They weren't just having an affair. They were bonded. While I was swollen and exhausted and grieving, they were finding comfort in each other. In the same rooms where my baby would one day learn to crawl. One afternoon, Rachel brought over soup for me. Chicken and rice just like my mother used to make. "You need to eat," she said, brushing hair from my face. "You're growing a whole human. You need strength." I nodded, thanked her, told her she was an angel. And then I flushed every last drop down the toilet the second she left. I couldn't eat anything she touched. My stomach had become a graveyard of trust. Daniel was starting to get nervous. He noticed how quiet I'd become, how I stopped asking where he was or when he'd be home. He brought home flowers, rubbed my back at night, told me he loved me, and I said it back. Because my silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. 2 weeks passed before I confronted Rachel. Not about the affair. Not directly. I asked her if she'd ever considered having kids. She smiled and said, "Not yet. I want to enjoy life a little longer." And then she placed her hand on my belly and said, "But I know yours will be perfect. You were made to be a mom." That's when I knew. She didn't feel guilty. Not really. Not enough. The final straw came on a Thursday afternoon. Dad had taken a turn. The nurses said it might be days. I asked Daniel to come with me to the hospital. He said work was crazy, so I went alone. And when I came back, Rachel's car was in the driveway. And I knew. This was the moment. I parked down the street. Waited. Watched. 2 hours passed. Then Daniel came out first. Looking calm. Like nothing had happened. Then Rachel followed. Hair messy. Wearing a hoodie that wasn't hers. They didn't kiss. They didn't even touch. But they didn't have to. The betrayal was written in their eyes. And captured. On the camera I'd installed at the front porch. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my hand resting on the baby kicking inside me. And I whispered, "You deserved a better beginning than this." I promised them, my baby, my father, and myself, that I would not go down quietly. The next morning I printed everything. Every frame. Every timestamp. Every touch. I placed the photos in a plain white envelope. Wrote a single word on the front. Truth. And I left it on Daniel's desk. I didn't say anything. Didn't wait around. I picked up my hospital bag and went to say goodbye to my father. When I returned that evening, the house was still. Too still. Daniel wasn't home. But the envelope was gone. And on the kitchen counter, a note in his handwriting. "We need to talk." I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the table, and waited. Not like a victim. Like a woman ready to reclaim everything stolen from her. He came home just after 10. I was still sitting at the table, lights low, a single lamp casting long shadows across the room. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, but loaded, heavy, tense. He walked in slowly, like a man approaching the edge of a cliff. Like he already knew it was too late to step back. "Hey," he said. Like that was all it would take. I didn't respond. He set his keys down. Looked at the envelope still resting beneath my hand. "Where did you? How long have you?" I met his eyes. He stopped mid-sentence. Because he saw it. That I knew everything. "I'm going to ask you once," I said quietly. "Don't lie to me. Are you in love with her?" He didn't answer right away. His jaw tensed. His eyes flickered toward the floor. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said. "We were just lonely. You were always at the hospital or sleeping and so it was her." A statement, not a question. He sank into the chair across from me, ran his hands through his hair like that would undo it all. "I didn't plan this," he said. "It just got out of control." I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that means you're amused. The kind that cracks something open in your chest. The kind that sounds like a sob if you listen too closely. "Out of control," I whispered. "Like falling in love with my best friend was a storm you accidentally stepped into?" He said nothing. I reached beneath the table and slid the second envelope across to him. He frowned. "What's this?" Proof that this wasn't a one-time mistake. That it wasn't just one bad decision. He hesitated, then opened it. Printed screenshots. Camera stills. Timestamp dates. Rachel in our kitchen wearing my hoodie. Him brushing her hair off her shoulder. Her crawling into our bed while I slept in the next room. His hands shook. I didn't know you saw. I saw everything. We sat in silence. Only the ticking clock above the stove dared to speak. And the baby kicked again. A sharp flutter that reminded me. I was still here. Still alive. Still breathing. I wasn't broken. Not completely. He looked up at me with tears brimming. I didn't stop loving you, he said. It was just she was there. I didn't mean to fall. I stood up slowly, walked to the sink, poured my water down the drain. You didn't fall, I said over my shoulder. You jumped. And you did it knowing I was already drowning. He followed me into the hallway. Please, he said. We can go to therapy. We can fix this. Don't throw away what we've built. I turned to face him. You already threw it away. You just hoped I wouldn't notice. He took a step forward. I swear I'll end it with her. I'll block her. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. I looked him straight in the eyes. You didn't lose me today, Daniel. You lost me the first time you kissed her and told yourself it didn't count. He cried that night. Begged. But I didn't yell. Didn't scream. Didn't call Rachel or shatter dishes or tear apart our home. No. I packed my hospital bag. Again. Only this time it wasn't for Dad. It was for me. I called a rideshare. He followed me out the door, pleading. I turned one last time. You're going to miss the woman who would have done anything for you, I said. But she's gone now. And I got in the car, leaving the shattered version of us behind. I arrived at my mother's place well past midnight. She opened the door in her robe, eyes wide. She didn't ask anything. She just held me. And I finally let myself cry. For the baby. For my father. For the version of love I had imagined but never truly received. I lay awake that night, hand on my belly, heart in my throat, and whispered, You are not born of betrayal. You are born of a mother who chose herself. Who chose you? Who will never abandon you for a lie. The morning after I left Daniel was gray and cold. Not just the sky, but everything. The walls, the air. Even my reflection in the mirror looked washed in ash. I barely recognized myself. At my mom's house, time moved slowly. She hovered, bringing me ginger tea, folding laundry beside me, rubbing my back when the baby kicked harder than usual. She never asked questions, just offered space and silence, which I needed more than I realized. I visited Dad that afternoon. His eyes barely opened when I walked in. The nurse said he hadn't eaten, that he hadn't spoken much in days. But when I took his hand, something flickered in his gaze. Recognition. Pain. Love. I left him, I whispered. The lies, they were too much. His fingers twitched. I wasn't sure if it was from weakness or understanding, so I just kept talking. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, but I couldn't raise your grandchild in a house filled with betrayal. The baby kicked again, almost like it knew I needed reassurance. I hope wherever you're going, you understand why I had to go. His hand squeezed mine. Just once. Then fell still again. That night I lay in my childhood bed wide awake. The ceiling fan spinning above like a slow carousel of memories. I remembered the first time I brought Daniel home. How Dad grilled him for 2 hours straight. How Daniel passed every question with a smile and firm handshake. I remembered how proud Dad was when we got married. How he toasted to a lifetime of partnership and trust. And now I carried a child made from love, but surrounded by betrayal. The next morning Dad passed away. Quiet. Peaceful. With my name on his lips, the nurse said, I broke. In a way I hadn't before. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because now there was no more protection. No buffer. No safe shoulder to lean into. At his funeral, I sat between my mother and aunt. Hands folded over my swollen stomach. Rachel didn't come. Daniel did. Alone. He stayed in the back row. Didn't speak. Didn't approach. But his eyes never left me. Grief changes you. Carves you open and rearranges who you are inside. But what surprised me most was that betrayal had done the same. After the burial, Daniel finally walked over. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. He held a small box in his hands. "Your father gave this to me last year," he said softly. "He told me to save it for when our child was born. I didn't know if you'd still want it." I took the box, didn't open it, just held it against my chest, then said, "Goodbye." He started to say something, but I turned away before he could. Back home, I opened the box. Inside was a silver chain with a tiny charm, a sun and a moon pressed together, and a folded note in Dad's handwriting. "For the day your world feels darkest, just remember, the moon still shines because of the sun." I wept, not because of Daniel, but because my father had somehow reached me, even from the grave. In the weeks that followed, I started over. Bit by bit, I registered for birthing classes, donated the baby items I had picked with Daniel, replaced them with new ones I chose alone. Mom helped paint the nursery, lavender and cream, soft colors, safe colors. Rachel tried to call. I didn't answer. She sent a message. "Please, I didn't mean to ruin your life." I deleted it. She'd already done enough. Daniel wrote letters, left flowers at Mom's porch, even offered to come to counseling, but I didn't need his guilt or his regret. I needed healing, and he had no place in it anymore. One night I stood in the nursery, one hand on the crib, the other on my belly, and I whispered, "You were never a mistake, not even for a moment, because this child, they were born from love, not from the affair, not from betrayal, but from me, and from the version of myself I was finally beginning to meet." The days grew longer, not because the sun stayed out, but because I did. Out of the house, out of my grief, out of the cycle of memories that used to pin me to the floor. I began walking in the mornings. Just me, the quiet world, and the baby growing beneath my ribs. My steps became steadier, my breaths deeper, and for the first time in weeks, my heart didn't feel like it was held together by threads. People in town started noticing. The cashier at the grocery store asked if I was having a boy or girl. The librarian saved children's books for me at the front desk. The barista at the cafe began writing little affirmations on my cup. "You're doing better than you think. You are not alone. You're someone's whole world already." And each one of them, in their small ways, reminded me I wasn't broken. I was becoming. One afternoon, as I sat on a park bench watching kids play, my phone rang. It was Daniel's sister. We hadn't spoken in months. "Hey," she said, voice gentle. "I just wanted to check on you." I told her I was okay, that the baby was healthy, that Mom was helping, that we were managing. She hesitated, then added, "He's not doing great." I didn't ask who. I already knew. He's lost weight, won't go out, keeps blaming himself for everything, and not just the affair. For Dad's passing, for you leaving. There was a pause. "Please don't think I'm trying to excuse him. I'm not. I just thought you should know." I thanked her, hung up, stared at the clouds drifting above the swings, and for a moment, just one moment, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Not forgiveness. Not longing. But the small ache of watching someone collapse under the weight of their own mistakes. The next day I wrote a letter. Not to invite him back. Not to soothe his guilt. But to release mine. Daniel. We were two kids trying to play adults. We built a life we thought was strong. But it cracked the moment we stopped holding it up together. I don't forgive what you did. But I understand that you're human. And that we both made choices that led us here. I will always remember the boy who made me laugh in the middle of calculus, who held my hand during Dad's first chemo session, who cried when we saw the first sonogram. That version of you was real. And so was I. But now I have to be someone else. For me. For our child. For the woman I've become. I hope you heal. I hope you grow. And I hope you never treat another love like something replaceable. Goodbye. I sealed the envelope. No return address. No need. This wasn't for him. It was for me. Rachel never reached out again. Maybe she finally understood silence was the clearest answer she would ever get from me. Or maybe she'd moved on, found someone else to play pretend with. Either way, she didn't matter anymore. The baby's due date crept closer. Each night I lay in bed with my journal, jotting down thoughts I wanted to read to them one day. Letters about strength, about choosing yourself, about how love without respect isn't love at all. One morning, I found an envelope slipped through Mom's mail slot. No name. Inside was a check, a generous one, and a note in Daniel's handwriting. For the baby. No strings. Just love. I stared at it for a long time, then placed it in a drawer I didn't open again. It wasn't guilt money. It was his own final goodbye. And I chose not to touch it, because what we were building now needed no ghosts. In those final weeks of pregnancy, I wasn't bitter. I was still. Not healed, but grounded. A woman who had watched her world fall, and chosen to rise anyway. Not because she had to, but because she could. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and soft panic. Mom clutched my hand as we wheeled into the maternity ward, her voice calm but her knuckles white. "It's time," the nurse said, and just like that, my life split in two. Contractions came like waves, unrelenting and full of meaning, each one breaking down the old version of me, the version that belonged to him, to the girl I used to be. I gritted my teeth and breathed through them, not just through the pain, but through everything. Through the memory of Daniel's hands on someone else, through Rachel's giggles in my kitchen, through my father's last smile, through every single moment that brought me here. Labor blurred. 12 hours of breathing, bearing, pushing, breaking. I was drenched in sweat, hollowed out and remade all at once. And then, a cry. Sharp. New. Sacred. The nurse placed her on my chest. Warm. Pink. Real. I stared down at her and all the pieces that had ever cracked inside me began to pull back together. She blinked at me with wide, unsure eyes. And I whispered, "You are mine. Not his. Not born of betrayal. You are born of survival." They asked for a name. I didn't hesitate. Luna. Because she was the light that came out of my darkest night. Mom sobbed beside me. The doctor smiled. And for the first time in months, the room wasn't full of ghosts. It was full of us. The next few days passed in a haze of midnight feedings and whispered lullabies. I didn't sleep much. But it wasn't exhaustion, it was awe. I watched her fingers curl into tiny fists. Watched her yawn like a lion cub. Watched her stretch like she'd already learned the art of reaching for more. And every time I looked at her, I felt it again. This is what rebuilding looks like. Not bricks and plans and promises, but flesh and breath and second chances. On our third night, the nurse brought in an envelope. No name, she said. But I already knew. Daniel. Inside was a photograph. Me from our wedding day. Smiling at him, veil caught in the wind. On the back, scribbled in pen. "You were always gold, even when I treated you like stone." I tucked the photo into Luna's baby book. Not to honor him, but to remind her, and myself, of what not to accept. 2 weeks after we came home, I sat in Luna's room rocking her gently when Mom knocked softly. "There's someone here to see you," she said. I froze. And then I saw her. Daniel's sister. Holding a gift basket, her eyes cautious but kind. "I wanted to meet her," she said. "And I wanted you to have this." She handed me a small music box. When I opened it, the tune was familiar. My father's favorite lullaby. I cried. Not for Daniel. Not for Rachel. But for the pieces of family that still showed up. The ones that loved without condition. That held space when I couldn't ask for it. That showed up not with apologies but presence. Later that night, as Luna slept, I wrote her a letter. "You were born from fire. Not destruction but transformation. You were the day my life began again." And I sealed it. For when she's older. For when the truth of her beginning needs to be met with strength, not shame. I wasn't healed yet. But I was healing. And that was enough. Luna was 3 months old when I realized I hadn't thought about Daniel in 2 whole days. Not in anger. Not in sadness. Not even in regret. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any scream. Our days found rhythm. Bottle at dawn. Walks in the park by 9. Nap at 11, which sometimes meant I napped too. I wore soft clothes that smelled like baby powder and lavender. I smiled more. Not wide fake grins. But those small real smiles that rise from deep peace. The kind that say, "I'm surviving. I'm okay." The neighbors had stopped whispering. Maybe they were bored. Maybe they'd found a new scandal. Or maybe, just maybe, people could see that I wasn't ashamed anymore. Because shame only lives in shadows. And I was standing fully in the light now. Daniel hadn't tried to reach out again. Not directly. But I heard through his sister that he'd moved to a new apartment. Smaller. Farther from here. She didn't say much. Only that he wasn't drinking. Was going to therapy. And had taken down all our wedding photos. I didn't ask for more. Some endings are meant to stay closed. Rachel. She vanished. Like she had never existed. No social media. No word through friends. No trace. First I wanted closure. A final confrontation. Maybe even an apology. But then one day, as Luna clutched my finger in her tiny palm, I realized. You don't need closure from people who were never open to begin with. I did, however, get a letter from someone else. Daniel's mom. It arrived one afternoon. Written in shaky cursive on pale blue paper. I wasn't the mother-in-law you needed, she wrote. And I didn't raise the son you deserved. But I will always love the girl who tried to hold our family together. And I will always love your daughter, whether I get to meet her or not. I cried. Not because I wanted her in our lives, but because the letter felt honest. And honesty, even when late, still matters. Luna started giggling that same week. Not a little coo. A real belly laugh, pure and sudden and so loud I dropped my coffee. I rushed over to her, heart racing. And there she was, arms flailing, cheeks round with joy, laughing at a sunbeam on the wall. That laugh healed parts of me I didn't know were broken. I began writing more. Journaling. Then essays. Then blog posts. I didn't use real names. But the stories were mine. And women wrote back. Hundreds of them. I thought I was alone. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. You helped me leave. I wasn't just healing. I was helping. One post went viral. It was titled, "She cheated with my best friend while I was pregnant, and I still chose peace." People were brutal in the comments. Others were kind. But I didn't post it for them. I posted it for her. For Luna. So she would know someday. That her mother chose strength over spite. I never mentioned Daniel again. Not to strangers. Not to friends. Not even to Luna when I sang her to sleep. Because the story wasn't about him anymore. It was about us. Our quiet. Our routine. Our morning dance parties in the kitchen. The way she smiled at me like I was the entire sky. Sometimes I still wake up at 2 a.m. and stare at the ceiling. The memories still knock. But now? They don't break the door down. They wait outside. And I let them stay there. Because I am not who I was when I found out. I'm not even who I was when she was born. I'm someone new. Forged from betrayal. Tempered by motherhood. Softened by grace. And unbreakable. It was a gray afternoon, the kind where the sky feels too heavy to breathe under. Luna had just drifted off on my chest, her tiny hand curled into my shirt, when the doorbell rang. 3 short chimes. Confident. Too familiar. I knew before I opened it. Daniel. Standing there like a ghost in real skin. Hair shorter. Face thinner. Eyes swollen not from crying but from holding too much in for too long. He didn't speak right away. Neither did I. Then. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said quietly. "Just to say something I should have said before." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I didn't want Luna to see this part of me. The part that still flinched at the sound of his voice. He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry I failed you. I thought providing for you meant disappearing into work. I thought I had more time. I thought Rachel was harmless. I thought a lot of things that don't matter anymore." He looked at the ground. "You didn't deserve that." The wind brushed between us, carrying silence and pain. I crossed my arms. "You broke me." "I know. And you broke her." I nodded toward the door. Before she ever had a chance to be held by both her parents at once. He swallowed. "I know." I waited for him to ask. To beg. To say he wanted to come back. But he didn't. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. "This is for her. Not money. Just something I wrote. In case she ever asks about me." I didn't take it at first. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "If I ever feel like it will help her, not hurt her, I'll give it to her. Not before." He nodded. No argument. And just like that, the power shifted. For the first time, I was in control. He turned to leave. Then paused. "You look stronger." That's because I am. The door clicked shut behind me like punctuation on a chapter that no longer needed editing. That night I didn't cry. I tucked Luna into bed, poured myself tea, and watched the city lights flicker from the balcony. I didn't open his letter. I didn't need to, because the words I really needed were already written in me. Days passed, weeks, and something beautiful happened. I started laughing again. Really laughing. That stomach-aching, eye-watering kind. Over nothing. Over everything. Over Luna's giggle fits when I pretended to sneeze. Over the way she danced in her walker to cheesy pop songs. Over burnt toast and mismatched socks and spilled milk at 3 a.m. Not because life was perfect, but because I was alive in it. I started posting again. Photos of Luna. Snippets of motherhood. Tiny victories. And the comments came in like waves. You're glowing. This version of you is unstoppable. Thank you for showing that betrayal isn't the end. I didn't respond to all of them, but I felt every word, because they weren't just complimenting me. They were reminding me I had made it through the fire, and I'd come out forged, not burned. A friend from high school reached out. We hadn't spoken in years. She'd read my blog. If you ever want to talk about speaking gigs or turning your story into something bigger, call me. I smiled, not because I needed the attention, but because my pain was finally useful. It had turned into something other people could stand on, just like I had. Luna turned one the following spring. A garden party. Soft music. Finger foods. Sunshine thick with gratitude. No Daniel. No Rachel. No ghosts. Just me, my daughter, and a life I built from the ashes. During her cake smash, Luna shoved icing into my mouth with sticky fingers. I laughed so hard I choked. And in that moment, messy and imperfect and full of joy, I realized I hadn't just survived betrayal. I'd rewritten its ending. And that ending was ours. I used to think healing would feel like forgetting, like waking up one day and not remembering how it all fell apart. No more echoes of betrayal. No more sting in my chest when I heard his name. But healing is remembering everything and still choosing peace. Luna took her first steps on a rainy Tuesday. No fanfare. No phones ready. Just me, barefoot in the kitchen, folding laundry while she pulled herself up and wobbled across the tiles. I gasped, dropped the towel, ran toward her like she just split the sky in two. You did it, baby, I whispered, scooping her up as she squealed. But what I didn't say out loud was, we both did. It hit me later that night. She was walking, not just crawling toward me. She was choosing direction. And suddenly I realized I had been doing the same. One morning, I opened my journal and wrote something different. Not about grief. Not about rage. Not about Daniel. But about joy. Simple, unpolished joy. Coffee that doesn't go cold. Tiny socks that get lost in the dryer. The way Luna now says mama like it's a magic spell. I read it back and smiled. For the first time in a long time, my life wasn't reacting to pain. It was moving forward. That week, I finally opened the envelope Daniel gave me. I waited until Luna was napping. Sunlight spilled across her crib like a blessing. Inside was a single page. To my daughter. I don't know if you'll ever read this. And I wouldn't blame your mother if she never let you. I made choices that hurt people I loved. And I lost the chance to be part of your life because I didn't deserve it. But you should know. You were never a mistake. You were a miracle I got to hold once. And I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stay the man you needed me to be. With love, your father. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it didn't undo me. It didn't shake the walls. Didn't unravel my lungs. It just sat there like a stone in a garden. Still. Unmoving. But no longer in the way. I folded the letter back carefully and placed it in Luna's keepsake box. Not for now. Maybe not ever. But someday when she's ready, she can decide what parts of her past are worth carrying. Because that's what healing gives you. Choice. Around Luna's second birthday, I started seeing someone. Slowly. Carefully. He was kind. Gentle. Asked questions and actually waited for answers. He didn't flinch when I told him the whole story. He didn't try to fix it either. He just listened. And one night, as we sat on the porch, he reached for my hand and said, "You're not broken. You're rebuilt. And beautifully so." I didn't fall head over heels. I didn't lose myself. I stepped forward with eyes wide open, this time with boundaries, with self-respect, with the deep knowing that I don't need anyone to complete me, just someone who sees me as already whole. Luna loved him, and he never tried to become her father. He just became present, and sometimes that's more powerful than a title. One night Luna asked me, "Where's my first daddy?" I froze, and then I did something I never thought I would. I told her the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. Just enough. He loved you. He made mistakes. But he gave me you. And that's something I'll always be thankful for. She blinked at me, then asked, "And what about you? Are you okay now?" I smiled. "I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm me. 3 years ago I thought my life was ending. A swollen belly. A broken heart. A home that no longer felt safe. A best friend who was no friend at all. And a husband whose touch had once promised forever, but instead delivered destruction. Now I wake up to tiny feet climbing into my bed at dawn whispering, 'Mama, are you awake?' And even when I'm tired, even when my bones ache from carrying it all, my answer is always the same. I am now, baby. Because life didn't end. It began. I still walk by the cafe where Rachel and I used to meet. I don't flinch anymore. The sting is gone, replaced by a soft indifference. She doesn't exist in my world now. Not in Luna's. Not in my memories, at least not the ones I feed. You see, healing isn't about erasing what happened. It's about starving the things that no longer deserve to grow. Daniel sent divorce papers 6 months after Luna turned 2. By then we were already strangers. He included a handwritten note. "Thank you for raising her. I hope she becomes like you, strong, kind, and honest. I wasn't ready to love you the way you deserved, but I hope someone will be." I signed the papers that night. Not with anger. Not with tears. Just a quiet kind of finality. The way you close the last page of a heavy book you'll never read again. Life became softer after that. Not easier. Just softer. I started painting again. Not for a career. Not for perfection. Just to move color across canvas and remind myself that beauty can still be made from chaos. Luna painted too. Smeared purples and oranges with her whole hand. Called them mommy rainbows. I kept every one. One evening, she sat in my lap and asked, "Will I ever have a new daddy?" I paused. Brushed a curl behind her ear. "Maybe. Someday. But only if he's really special. Like you." She smiled like she'd just been handed the moon. And in that smile I saw every ounce of light I thought I'd lost. I no longer introduce myself as someone who was betrayed. That's not my identity. It's just one stop on the map. What I am is whole. Not because I avoided pain, but because I walked through it and kept walking. Sometimes at night when Luna's asleep and the house is still, I whisper a quiet prayer. Not to forget, not to rewind, but to remember clearly who I was, who I became, and who I refused to let the pain turn me into. To the woman who's listening to this right now, the one clutching her chest because the betrayal still burns, the one wiping tears and wondering if it ever gets better, the one staring at a crib, wondering if she can raise a child alone. It does. You can. And you will. Because healing isn't loud. It isn't glamorous. It's quiet. Soft. Patient. It's the moment you smile again without forcing it. It's the day you stop checking their social media. It's when your child looks at you and says, "You're the best part of my day." I don't know what Rachel's doing now. Or Daniel. And truthfully, I don't care. Because I'm here. Right where I'm supposed to be. Whole. Worthy. And finally free.